It's a joy to welcome you to this fantastic webinar on Northern Adelaide Irrigation Scheme. We welcome you today, and so many have joined us. It's great to see you all here, and people are still coming on as we speak. Michael Edgecombe from SA Water and Bengy Paolo from PIRSA, Primary Industries and Regions South Australia, will be speaking for us today. My name is Trevor Pillar. I'm the National Partnerships Manager here at iSwarm, and I'll be chairing and moderating today. These are the webinars coming up in the near future. I won't go into them individually. We'll look at that again later, but just to let you know, there's free webinars coming up in the next few weeks. The agenda, very quickly, it's two parts: 25 minutes presentation by Mike and then Benji, and then 25 minutes Q&A open to you all. Please do come on and give us your thoughts and questions. Secondly, there'll be a recording which will be sent to you. And finally, there is a feedback form that should come up after the webinar is over. Spend a minute and help us to shape these webinars by ticking the boxes of things you like, things you didn't like. So Michael's been around the industry for over 20 years, working in business industry development and infrastructure projects. He's the Business Development Manager at SA Water, responsible for raising awareness of the Northern Adelaide Irrigation Scheme and assisting businesses to submit viable projects. Benji's known across government and throughout South Australia for his executive leadership in major programs. He brings to the Northern Adelaide Irrigation Scheme great understanding of economic and program development process. I'm not going to say any more. Probably said plenty more than I need to right now, but I'm so delighted that you've joined us, gentlemen. I'll hand right over to you now. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks very much, Trevor, and welcome everyone to our seminar here today. We're delighted to be able to talk to you about the Northern Adelaide Irrigation Scheme, which is a way of accessing reliable climate-independent water for responding to the global opportunity presented by booming food markets. And with me is my colleague Bengy Paolo, the Director of Major Programs at Primary Industries and Regions South Australia. Thanks very much, Trevor. So just to talk about what we're going to cover today, there's sort of four main segments to the presentation. First of all, we'll just talk about the opportunity presented by booming world food markets and the Northern Adelaide Irrigation Scheme as a response to that market opportunity. Then we'll look at the larger context. The Northern Adelaide Infrastructure Scheme itself, or NAIS, is an important water infrastructure scheme, but of course that sits within the larger context of a program called the Northern Adelaide Plains Agribusiness Initiative, and it's squarely aimed at supporting that initiative with a reliable source of climate-independent water. Thirdly, we'll talk about the infrastructure itself, some detail about how we'll be funding that and how it will operate, key elements of the design for those who are interested in that. And we'll finish by talking about business and partnership opportunities. So first of all, to the opportunity itself. Northern Adelaide Irrigation Scheme is a once-in-a-generation opportunity for advanced agribusinesses to secure a long-term supply of reliable, climate-independent water. Of course, there are always other water sources. There's stormwater harvesting or groundwater or river systems, but NAIS offers significant advantages over those systems. There's significant seasonal variation, for example, in a river system. We're heading here in Australia into what looks like a dry, hot summer, and that means significant price fluctuations, even potentially drought-related restrictions on water entitlements and allocations. El Nino comes through every 7 years on average, and our businesses need to work around that natural cycle. The water source that we're talking about today isn't dependent in that way on climatic or seasonal variation. There's also black water or algal events. There's also long-term climatic uncertainty. So the NAIS price premium has to be offset against the facts of supply certainty, managed quality, and very long-term price stability, 45 or more years. So it's a superb platform for businesses wishing to supply booming food export markets in Asia and across the globe efficiently and profitably. The global trend, of course, is for rapid population growth, rising incomes, growing affluence, and changing expectations in developing countries. And that's creating extraordinary opportunities for global agribusinesses. The United Nations World Population Prospects, for example, shows that by 2100, there'll be 11.2 billion people on the planet, 9.7 billion by 2050. So that means global food demand will rise somewhere between 60 and 100% by 2050. That's 1.7 trillion in agricultural export opportunities, and that will transform the global food industry. That's largely driven by Asia's growing and increasingly affluent middle class. So Asian demand will double by 2050. China's the biggest chunk of that, at estimated 43% increase in demand. India 13%. And the focus, of course, is on clean, healthy, high-quality food imports. Where are they going to come from? Well, there's significant production challenges which are going to make that not a straightforward question. So climate change-driven water scarcity, rising global temperatures, extreme weather events, and land repurposing for other reasons to support bioenergy crops, for example, are putting pressure on the global food balance. So NAIS is one response to that opportunity. It's a sophisticated, world-class, high-technology agri-food precinct on the Northern Adelaide Plains, supported by the Australian, South Australian and local governments. So why South Australia? For those of you who don't live here, I might need to spell out the benefits of operating out of South Australia. It's an ideal launching pad for a push into Asia. It's a biosecure region with a Mediterranean climate, and that means quite a dry, pest-free, healthy environment to produce crops. A wide range of soil types and terrain, the largest cluster of agri-food research and development in the Southern Hemisphere, more greenhouse production acreage than any other Australian state. We're an Australian leader in area around protected cropping, and I'll show you a couple of big businesses in a moment that have demonstrated proof of concept for basing a business of this size and scale and sophistication in South Australia. So there's a major opportunity here on the Northern Adelaide Plains, and the Northern Adelaide Irrigation Scheme has the potential to support up to 3,000 hectares of globally competitive high technology horticulture, including advanced greenhouse production. Now at this stage, we're not limiting at all what the nature of that production might be. It could be horticulture, it could be floriculture, it could be fruit and nut orchards, it could be table and wine grapes, it could be poultry and feedlotting, aquaculture or high-value broadacre cropping. Any of these would be able to use the water that we're making available for production of premium crops for national import replacement or international export markets. Just to give you a clue as to where we're based, you can see toward the bottom of this map the city of Adelaide itself, and then the green oval toward the top of the map, which is marked Northern Adelaide Irrigation Scheme, is an indicative footprint for the water distribution network that will carry water to enterprises based in this part of South Australia. Over to the left, you can see a diagram of Australia as a whole. The dark grey square, roughly, is South Australia, and that will help you orient the scheme within that larger global picture. Now, just have a look at the map, because there's a couple of things I want to point out here. We've not only got the space to plant the irrigation scheme, if you like, but there's also significant infrastructure to support it as well. So we've got to the north and to the south, we've got rail infrastructure connecting Adelaide to the major interstate capitals and ports. We've got a ready access to air links and to sea links, as well as road and rail links. To the north of the map, or the top of the map, we've got a sort of a microscope icon identifying the Roseworthy Agricultural College, and to the bottom of the map, the Waite Agricultural Research and Development Precinct. And combined, these are the largest cluster of research and development, agribusiness research and development expertise in the Southern Hemisphere. So there's significant support for advanced agribusinesses through transport, through business services, through education and training, as well as the production opportunities that exist. There's also export infrastructure through the South Australian produce markets based at Cavan, just north of the CBD. All of these within about 45 minutes of the Adelaide CBD, so very close to transport hubs. Now, just a couple of examples of businesses that are already based in South Australia. One is Perfection Fresh. It's a national group, and the largest production facility is here at Two Wells, just north of Adelaide, about 30 minutes north of Adelaide. This is the largest single glasshouse in the Southern Hemisphere, or collection of glasshouses. It's 35 hectares, and it produces up to 20,000 tonnes of tomatoes per year. It's created over 150 new jobs in the local area. Development began in 2010, and it's been expanded in a number of stages since, but it's now Australia's largest purpose-built tomato glasshouse there at Two Wells. So an example of what can be done if water is made available in this area. One other example, which is Sundrop Farms at Port Augusta. This is the brainchild of Philip Zalmweber, who's a former investment banker, and a Dutch civil engineer, Rania Volterbeek, who put this very futuristic concept together, but it's working really well. So this is a view from the west-southwest. The tall column you can see in the centre of the facility is a central receiver that captures energy from 23,000 mirrors at the base of it. That captures sunlight and pass it through. to that 127 metre power tower. And at its peak, it produces 39 megawatts of thermal energy, which is used for electricity, for heating, and for desalinating water from the Spencer Gulf. So this was a $200 million facility. Private equity firm KKR invested in it, so global capital, and that's producing 15,000 tonnes of truss tomatoes a year. So just these two examples illustrate what is being done in South Australia at the moment, and we're certainly hoping for more of the same through the Northern Adelaide Irrigation Scheme. Now that's probably enough from me around the business opportunity that's presented to which this scheme is a response. And what I'd like to now do is hand over to my colleague Bengy Paolo, and he'll talk about the larger context, the Northern Adelaide Plains Agribusiness Initiative. Thanks very much, Bengy.
Thanks, Michael, and thank you, Trevor. Welcome, everyone. I'm really pleased to be participating and joining you in this webinar. We do note that some of you are from overseas or interstate, so we'll try and keep this as high level as we can. But we're particularly keen to hear from you, your feedback, what you know and experience in the work that you do. That can certainly inform the development of this quite a significant scheme and the agribusiness opportunities that'll support it. Michael highlighted the growing demand worldwide, and that's been driven, as you'd be aware, of more discerning markets and consumers. And he also outlined why South Australia. And at a South Australian level, we've been working to a number of really key plans, one being the Northern Economic Plan, which covers the broader area for the irrigation scheme. And that's been brought about by a number of economic shocks over time that typically regions experience. And for us, with the community and with industry, we're looking to transform that region and focusing on some key sectors and key industries based on innovation, new ideas, exploring the opportunities, but also keeping a mind for exports and global growth. Some of those sectors that are going to be a focus in the area include tourism, health, ageing and disability, mining and technology services, defence, which has been an increasing opportunity for South Australia and nationally, construction and urban renewal as our urban boundaries start to grow, and of course agriculture, food and beverage, with the Northern Adelaide Irrigation Scheme is a key platform to achieve that transformation. The directions that we're broadly heading to at a strategic level is, of course, around jobs and investment, new jobs, new investment or reinvestment from existing businesses, but also bearing in mind that socially we want communities to thrive and to grow and keep pace with the economic development that we hope to see over the next little while. And of course, having the three levels of government here in Australia, the Commonwealth Australian Government, the South Australian and local councils, all working together in a way that we can help achieve the outcomes that we're all looking for. If I drill down, you saw a map from Michael of the state. We've been looking at things at three levels. One around what we're calling an economic corridor to the north. Then we'll drill down to the Northern Adelaide Plains, where this project's going to be located, and then a couple of projects which Michael will then talk more around NAIS. This map here zooms into South Australia, and at the bottom you can see where the City of Adelaide is, and NAIS is towards the bottom third of that grey shaded area. But what this illustrates is the opportunity further north, and some of the examples that Michael showed around that high-tech glasshouse in Port Augusta, you can see at the top of the map there. But this corridor, as we describe it, it's probably got the most productive farming land, grain, livestock, as well as food processing facilities, which is critical to support that in that area. And again, we are looking for increasing productivity and the value of that productivity for people, and also the employment opportunities that come along with that. So that's our strategic sort of a view of where the scheme fits into other economic activity that's happening in that mid-north to northern area. At a Northern Adelaide Plains level, this map shows zooming into where the Northern Adelaide Irrigation Scheme would be located, which is effectively in the middle of that map. But it also shows the proximity to our infrastructure networks and some of the benefits of the location of the scheme when we talk about it's 50 minutes away from Adelaide Airport, which is critical to get fresh produce to our overseas markets. The transport and logistics is well catered for in terms of road and rail, but also seaports as well as the airport. In terms of making the best of the opportunities, Michael mentioned that as a government we're looking at agribusiness initiatives which will support the development of the infrastructure. So we've been working hard together, being mindful that as the construction build of the infrastructure goes over the next 12 to 18 months, we need to work with industry and local communities to prepare for that, whether it's preparing the workforce so that they're ready for jobs, preparing industries so that they are ready to grow, ready to access the markets if they haven't accessed them for the first time. And there are a suite of projects and initiatives that we're working on at the moment and talking with industry aimed at increasing production, trying to access infrastructure to support that growth. And this water infrastructure is a critical piece of that opportunity. Supporting the growers at the production level to access and connect to either interstate or overseas markets. And if they're already doing so, how can we extend their reach and help them do that? And on the ground, also bearing in mind that supporting our industry and leadership capability and skills, so industry drives the growth and drives their own aspirations. At a project level, very briefly, today we're going to be talking about the Northern Adelaide Irrigation Scheme, but there are other things that we're doing on the ground which will support that, and an important one being our biosecurity measures, which will ensure that the things that overseas markets demand in regards to quality and health are around pest-free management, and South Australia is renowned for its biosecurity reputation and supporting our economic priority around being premium products from a clean environment exported to the world. So we've got a number of initiatives that sit underneath this. We do make the most of our opportunities with our overseas colleagues, and one example there through various inbound and outbound delegations is a memorandum of understanding with Singapore to start sharing our capabilities and information around food manufacturing industry so we may grow together and maximise those opportunities as well. So look, I might stop there and hand over to Michael as he drills down into the opportunities with a particular project of NAIS. And I look forward to your questions a little bit later on. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Benji. We'll just move through to the section where I'm talking about the design of the infrastructure. With the funding package, $110 million has been committed by the South Australian Government through SA Water, and $45.6 million by the Australian Government through the National Water Infrastructure Development Fund capital component. So significant public sector investment, but of course that's designed to stimulate private sector investment, and we're looking for $1.1 billion of that. So I think fairly conservative amount, but certainly the modelling was undertaken by Econsearch, very respected economic consultancy. 3,700 jobs and potentially a $578 million annual increase in gross state product. So the scheme provides secure, climate independent water. Stage one of the scheme will involve 12 gigalitres of water, but there's more to follow. There's another 8 gigalitres planned for stage two, and potentially more after that if demand is demonstrated. It'll come through a pressurised pipeline that delivers the water to the farm gate, and there might of course be on-farm infrastructure that takes the water and makes it available through the farm facility itself. It's climate independent and season independent water. It will be ultra filtered, and depending on the feedback we get from the marketplace, it may also be salinity limited. We're certainly building an option into the design that will control the amount of total dissolved solids, but we're waiting to see what the market tells us in terms of what they want. It will meet the Department of Health standard for commercial food production, and it will be made available to project developers under secure long-term contracts tradable within the scheme, and linked to a stable index price path. So a lot of advantages for building a sustainable agribusiness model over a 40 to 50 year time frame, very long time frame, and very supportable. In terms of the scheme design, we'll actually be blending two sources of water. So there'll be water that's coming from our DAF plant, and some of that will be treated and stored on site at our wastewater treatment at Bolivar, just north of Adelaide. We'll be injecting 4.9 gigalitres of water into the ground through a managed aquifer recharge scheme. Our recovery rates for that are excellent, 85% initially, rising to 96% in the longer term. We'll also be blending that with potentially with water from an advanced water recycling plant if desalination is required. And once we've blended the two sources of water, that'll be transmitted through a 27-kilometre transfer pipeline to the Northern Adelaide Plains at 2 wells. There'll be some balancing storage there, 200 megalitre above ground tanks, which will be lined and covered, and they'll be then used to distribute the water through a pressurised system to the farm gate. In terms of the treatment facilities, just a brief note on what we're doing as far as that goes. The pre-treatment will involve coagulation and flocculation, probably with iron salts to avoid the effects of alum scaling, and then clarification. And that will pass the water through to dual media filters, sand and anthracite, low pressure filters, very similar to what we're using across our system at the moment, and that will remove solids from the water. If required, we'll then be going through a reverse osmosis desalination process. There'll be further ultraviolet treatment through an in-pipe irradiation system, and then finally gas chlorination to ensure that the water is completely safe. So the water will be extensively treated, and as I said, it will meet our Department of Health guidelines for commercial food production, no problem at all. Just in terms of the managed aquifer recharge scheme, this is a diagram of how it will operate at Bolivar. You can see on the left there the water coming from the wastewater treatment plant. It's then injected through a bore field into a deep aquifer where it will displace saline native groundwater, and that effectively creates a bubble of fresh water, if you like, well below the surface. That's protected. 96% of that will be recovered in time and then distributed through the system as required for irrigation projects. So we have a lot of experience in operating these schemes. In fact, a world expert, Greg Ingleton, who is delivering a TED talk right now, so can't be here, but he's certainly an expert in these schemes, and we've got extensive expertise in and a track record in running them, and we think this is going to be an excellent component to the scheme as a whole. In terms of regulatory oversight, there's extensive regulation of the scheme, so people can have every confidence in the water that's produced, both from our Department for Environment, Water and Natural Resources, from the Environment Protection Authority, from the Department of Health, and from the Essential Services Commission of South Australia. In terms of water prices, people will no doubt be interested in that, and they are available in our call for project proposals, which is on the internet at www.tenders.sa.gov.au. If you search on NAIS, you'll find the detail, but briefly overviewing that here. People who connect to the scheme will be charged a once-only capital contribution of $2.90 a kilolitre, and that helps to pay for the infrastructure to bring it to the farm gate. It doesn't matter where you are in the NAIS footprint, that will be the charge for connecting to the scheme. Then there's an annual availability charge based around your contracted volumes, 24 cents a kilolitre, and then finally a metered usage charge, which is fluctuates completely based on the volumes you're actually drawing through the pipeline for your project, and that will be 25 cents a kilolitre. If we move to a desalination option, which we are considering based on market feedback, then that could be 75 cents a kilolitre. Now, these are indicative prices that we're putting out into the marketplace so that people can undertake business modelling. But and it's possible that as we move through the design process, we might be able to find some efficiencies, and certainly we'll be keen to do that if we can. But that's an indication of what the pricing for the scheme will be. Just in terms of the time frame, the call for project proposals issued in early September. Round one closes in a couple of weeks on the 15th of November, and we know already that we're going to have some interest in the water available through the scheme through round one. Round two closes on the 28th of February next year, and if need be, there could be a round three or a round four if more water is made available and there's strong interest in that. We certainly hope there is. Project proposals will be reviewed by a whole of government panel, and proponents offering significant economic benefits will be shortlisted. The objective is economic returns to the state, and water contracts will be negotiated with shortlisted proponents. We'd expect construction to begin about April next year, certainly early 2018, and first water to flow in early 2019. I'd just like to wrap up by quickly summarising some of the opportunities available to people who engage with the scheme. First of all, if people are interested in participating in the construction phase, the best way to do that is to email www.naissuppliers.com.au, and the link is on the screen, and just register your interest, and that will certainly be passed through to the head contractor who will be responsible for the construction phase. But it's probably the business opportunities that I'd like to focus people on most of all, because they will be enduring long-term opportunities. Agri-food production clearly is at the top of the list, but there'll be all kinds of service providers who will support that. So that will be around greenhouse construction, around the provision of business services such as insurance, technology and service providers, transport and logistics providers. Interestingly, in July we had Protected Cropping Australia conference here in Adelaide, and there are a large number of Dutch companies who are here from Western Europe to express interest in the scheme and to indicate the kind of services they could provide in support of project developers. So we already know there's strong interest from around the world in the business opportunities created by the scheme. And if you're in touch with people who are contemplating an investment in agri-food production for export markets, then by all means pass on the details of the scheme to them. Now, there's also opportunities for collaboration, and I'll just pass you over to conclude to Bengy Paolo, and he will run through those. Thanks, Bengy.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Building on those collaborative opportunities that we spoke about a little bit earlier, we won't be able to do this alone, and today's probably the first opportunity for us to start the conversation, particularly with those of you who are online. I've noticed quite a number are consulting firms, technical firms, and also from our tertiary or university institutions, as well as government. And so we see the opportunity. Bear with me as I get my slides into the right spot. There we go. How we work together, how we define the roles of industry in particular as they seek to drive the opportunities across the area. There's a lot of work that's being done at the local area in regards to land use planning, and that's the local councils putting in their development plans to, one, provide certainty for investment, two, to ensure that the type of infrastructure that's going to get built and the proposed use of that infrastructure can happen in a very measured and planned way that's sustainable for the future, and also how we prepare for those markets and anticipate what water infrastructure and users might be looking for in the next 10 to 20 years. So all those things are going to take a lot of people getting together and a lot of questions and answers and some work to be done over a period of time as the scheme gets built. But also then once it's built and used, how do we keep improving it? How do we expand that scheme into other areas across South Australia and hopefully other parts of Australia as they start to see the opportunities similar to ours. Challenges, of course, will be delivery on the ground, which for any project of this size and complexity, again, is going to involve a lot of collaboration and organisations working together. And we're thinking about what success would look like, and I'll be interested to see whether that's a question that some of you might have, which Trevor, I might throw to you, whether that's a good segue into the Q&A.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Michael, Benji, it's been an excellent broad brush of all the issues: scientific, technological, economic, commercial, and we really appreciate the effort that's gone into this. And it's so great to see so many people here. Colombia, New Zealand, water systems engineers, senior asset planners, account managers, scientific officers, principal policy advisors. Well, you definitely drew a diverse crowd, Michael and Benji. This topic is obviously taking a lot of people's thinking. We'll start off with Stephen McNally over in New Zealand. Great initiative to reuse water. Well done, Sir Stephen. You identified a large available volume for many years, but do you anticipate setting good practice water use efficiency protocols to make widest use of the resource?
Kick off with that question. And thanks, Stephen. I noticed I'm cheating because I've got a sheet of who's online, and Stephen, you're from New Zealand, which I'm really pleased for your joining, and also the question, because we have been doing a bit of thinking about this in relation in the planning context for sustainable use of the water and what's good practice, but also modern practice, where, as I said a little bit earlier, how do we anticipate what the needs and changes might be into the future? So we are looking about what a a water management framework or governance framework might look like for the 21st century. And that's going to involve a lot of experts, particularly in the planning context, as well as within government, as to how we take the opportunity to set those practices up sooner rather than later. So businesses who come in to access the new water already have that in their thinking, and also demonstrate to future users or existing users in other schemes how we might be able to push ourselves to adopt the best practice or more modern practices around water management to ensure that not only are we using the right technologies and the most innovative ideas for efficiency use of water, but also how do we apply that to energy, which is a key input to some of the proposals that we expect to see. So from that side of things, Mike, I don't know if you want to add any more to that.
Sure. Thanks, Benji. Look, the Water Institute, which is really a centre for water research expertise in South Australia, has done quite a bit of work on this. And certainly water use efficiency is an important part of the total puzzle. The one point I would make is that advanced glasshouses are highly water efficient. We had the Dutch ambassador here a couple of weeks ago, and she was quoting numbers which are regularly achieved by glasshouses using Dutch technology. They can grow 45 kilograms of tomatoes from 1 kilolitre of water, which, if you picture it, is just 1 cubic metre of water. So it's quite phenomenal through the reuse multiple times of water within the one system. Yields even higher than that have been quoted. We had Van der Hoven talking to us about a glasshouse in Nevada that was growing 95 kilos of tomatoes from 1 kilolitre of water. So certainly water use efficiency is very important, and the advanced glasshouses, which are in some ways an ideal customer for water from this scheme, can demonstrate that kind of efficiency.
There's one other question that Stephen has there in Wellington, New Zealand. Intensive land use often produces a waste stream of its own, including modified water quality from surface or leaching flows. Is there opportunity for further on-site capture and recycling, or again, good practice learnings for the users?
Well, look, I might respond to that, and then Benji might add something if he has. We are looking at an integrated water cycle management scheme for the area. So that would look at all water flows and how they can be managed for sort of long-term sustainability of the region. So it's a very good point, and we're certainly very conscious of that. And we will be looking to build something like that into sort of operating protocols for the region as a whole. But at this stage, we're just at the beginning of that journey.
Yeah,
Benji?
Yeah, and in relation to other waste streams, we're also looking at what do we do with that sort of scale of development and the pace of development, the other waste streams that we might see, whether it's plastics, if it's in covered cropping areas. We had quite a significant flood event towards the end of last year, which showed that the waste issue existing needs to be addressed, but also how do we start thinking about the type of waste we might start to see happening into the future as we see more sophisticated and high-tech type equipment and materials getting used, and how do we do that in a way that can be recycled, separated, and can there be an industry in itself that's developed around the scheme, and as businesses start to set up.
Yep, no, that's great, gentlemen. I want to just say thank you and welcome to Philippe from the National University of Colombia. So I could imagine what time it might be there at this time of day here, probably something in the region of midnight, but welcome, Philippe. That's good that you could join us. George now says that he's here in Adelaide. He noted the two options for treatment, one being 600 ppm, the other being 1000 ppm. Is it ultimately going to be one quality delivered to all, or will only one type be supplied to users?
Okay, well, I might take that question, Trevor. Yep. At the moment, we're building a scheme that could deliver either option, and we're really looking to the market to give us feedback on what managed water quality they're after. If in the end we need to settle on one water quality for the core infrastructure in the scheme, but we're certainly happy to talk to individual project developers about potentially on-farm infrastructure that might be operated to manage the quality of the water or other attributes of the water so that it's just perfect for the kind of crop they want to grow. So there will be one solution for the scheme as a whole, but that doesn't mean there's not flexibility at the farm gate, if you like, for SA Water as the manager of their system to work with project developers to deliver a product that's just ideally suited to their crop.
Yep. Good, Benji. With that, yeah.
Oh, that's all good.
That's good, yeah. We'll press on. For consultants providing advice to potential end users where we can get more details of the scheme, that has been designed and locked in, ready for construction first thing next year. Wait a minute, I haven't got that question right. Has the scheme been designed and locked in, ready for construction first thing next year? I think that's the guts of the question.
Yeah, well, there's probably a couple of aspects of the question. It's a good question. First of all, we're working on quite a rapid cycle development for design of the infrastructure. And that's why we're expecting that we will be ready to start construction in early 2018. And April is certainly the month that we have in mind. We're not locked in terms of, we're not contracted to any one party at this stage. So if people are interested in supplying to the scheme, there's an opportunity to do that right now, and they should use the email address that I provided in the slides to signal their interest and what they've got to offer to the scheme. So that answers perhaps that question. We're moving ahead quite fast, but we're not really locked in. We are open to approaches from people who've got something to offer.
Yeah, no, thanks, Michael. That's good.
Yeah, Trevor, I will just provide information where people can go for further information, because that might address a number of questions that people have. If they go to www.sawater.com.au/NAIS, they will get access to all of the scheme documentation. And I think that will probably address a number of questions that people have, whether, questions that have been asked and perhaps other questions people are thinking about as well.
Oh, that sounds good. We've got an on-screen question from Martin O'Rourke in New South Wales from Crown Lands and Water. So I'll hand right over to you, Martin. Thanks for coming to join us. Maybe we will hear you rather than see you.
Yes,
far away.
I haven't got visual.
No, that's good, Martin. We can hear you clear as bell. That's good. Thank you.
Quick question. With respect to using the treated effluent, does the treatment process get rid of all the viruses? And with the MAS scheme, does the water that you inject into the aquifer, what effect does that have on the integrity of the aquifer, and will there be chemical fouling?
Okay, so two good questions there. The treatment that we're using certainly does deal with viruses and other pathogens in the water. I can't quote you the number, unfortunately, off the top of my head. I don't remember the number that we're taking it to in terms of the level of treatment, but it certainly complies with Department of Health guidelines for commercial food production, so very safe. With injection into the aquifer, clearly there's a displacement of the native saline groundwater from the treated water that we're putting into the aquifer, but that water itself is suitable for commercial food production. So there's not really, it will need to be approved by the Environment Protection Authority and by the Department for Environment, Water and Natural Resources. So they're quite strict about impacts. There'll be a lot of mapping required, for example, but this is an aquifer we already understand quite well. The water tends to migrate toward the sea, and this water would otherwise be going out to sea. So we certainly comply with our environmental obligations, and there's unlikely to be any significant environmental impact from the injection and extraction.
Any comment, Benji?
No, it's good.
Oh, good. Yep. Is it good, Martin?
Yep.
Thanks a lot for your call. Appreciate your call. Tom from WGA has asked, is the 0.75 and 0.25 per kilolitre charging cost or cost to produce it? If cost to produce and deliver water, it appears to be optimistic.
That's the cost charged to the customer. So it does cover things like our cost of capital, for example, but actually we expect the final cost to be perhaps a little bit lower than that. So a significant modelling has been undertaken, and we're reasonably optimistic we're in the ballpark. We're just trying to fine-tune that number at the moment through the early stages of the design process.
Yep, no, that sounds good. Meena Yadav has asked, is there any research on the salinity of soil and how to control it?
Well, there is an excellent website that addresses questions like that. I know PIRSA have done a lot of work on soil types, soil attributes, and what is the best match between soil and crop. So I'm sure Benji would like to follow on from my answer, but I can quickly say that www.aginsights.sa.gov.au is the place to go for detailed answers to that question, and you'll find a lot of resources there to assist you.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. And you're right. There's been a number of studies done in regards to soil types, and that also takes into consideration any climate changes and rainfall over that broader Northern Adelaide Plains area. And it takes into consideration the type of mix we expect to see of the water use. So whether it's high-tech cover cropping greenhouses, so hydroponic, where soil quality is less of an issue, but also the broad acre farming as well, where soil in fact is critical, and how that's managed over time and over crop yields is really, really important. So I have done some work, and the industry itself keeps itself well informed around those sort of tests, but we'll certainly continue to do that, particularly around the salinity type issue. But we hope that through the feedback that we'll get from industry in terms of the type of quality of water that they want and those price points, that we'll get a better understanding of what they see their intended use to be. Thank you.
That sounds great. That's good. Well, we're drawing to a close here with the questions, but there's one here that is crucial. What pressure is planned to be delivered to the farm gate?
Look, that's a very good question. I'm pretty sure I remember it being as 136 kilopascals, or 20 metres a head. But the actual number is contained in the call for project proposals that's at the sawater.com.au/NAIS site. So if that piece of information is very important to you, then by all means contact me or access that documentation, because the number is in there.
All right then. Well, let's call it a day for now. Thank you everyone for joining us. It's been a huge number of people and very interesting questions. I think we should hit this again in the near future. But you can see down there we've actually looked at the idea of doing another one next week. We'll toss that around after the webinar and come back to everybody with an email. You'll get an email anyway out of this webinar. Yes, thanks, guys. Yeah, very informative. I see your comments coming out. Brilliant forum. Yep, thank you for that. That's great. I'll point you to the free webinars coming up in the future. There will be a recording sent back to you, and there will be a feedback form come up as you close this down. But Water Research Australia is going to have a webinar pretty soon, and one on proposed coastal reservoirs, you can see there. So we've got some really interesting things coming forward. I absolutely love doing this. The people you meet and the stuff people are doing, it's just so interesting. Keep up to date with us with Twitter and other social media here at iSwarm. We are so pleased you could join us today. Once again, Michael, Benji, thanks very much for your time today, and everybody who joined us, greatly appreciated. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.